Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Evil. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, we had that opening with Cheryl, and basically her working with Leland and the injection she's getting. Like, we still don't know what that goop is that's, like, getting put inside of her, but then it's like, she's obviously changed and she's basically meeting up with dudes and they're like straight up killing them and drawing their blood, and it seems like she's all about this. She's playing like a femme fatale type of role, and I was like, oh, that's fascinating. Because there's even this line later on where she was like, she wanted something, like, obviously Leland needs her help, which would get to Leland's situation a little bit later on, but then it's like, what are you going to offer me? And he's like, Edward. And I'm like, I wonder what does that mean in the sense of like, right, I get to see Edward again, like, he kind of drew me in, but now that I'm part of this operation, he's leaving me to do my work, and so we haven't really been interacting, so it's like, right, I want Edward in a sense of like, oh, like, I want to kind of be able to stay in contact with him. I'm going to, you know, probably like, since then, like, either he's kind of cut off contact with her because that's just how it works, or is it almost like a Black Widow thing of like, oh, I want to draw you in so I can kill you. Like, not Black Widow isn't the right word, right phrasing to say in that regard, but I'm like, I don't know if it, what that is. Like, does she like, just go like, oh, I like him and I want to, like, oh, you can offer me Edward, like, as services for me helping you. I don't know. It's just interesting, like, how full-blown dark side Cheryl is going. Like, she had her moments in season 1, but I'm like, this is like on a whole other level. She's helping kill people and drain their blood. So it's like, obviously, like, beat for beat, the song at the beginning, that's pretty interesting. But we'll circle back to that a little bit later on as we kind of go through everything. But you have the new case that they have is the team is working with the IRS, which once again I love. Father Mark's walking in and it's like, okay, this is David, Kristen, and Ben. And I'm like, why does Ben keep getting shit on? Like, stop doing that. Like, why can't anyone ever remember Ben's name? I think it speaks volumes that, like, he couldn't, but then later on the Satanist can, which I find fascinating. Well, I mean, I don't know if, I'm sure, I don't know. I don't know if Satanists would even kind of like I don't associate us with them, like this new ministry of Satan, which that be, it's the crux of this a part of this episode is that the IRS is basically determining whether or not a religious group is really a religious group and they deserve the tax exemption, or whether it's just someone trying to come up with something. Like, there's that, like, the spaghetti monster thing we saw. I'm like, where have I heard that from? Like, that is, like, that's not a fake thing. That is a real thing. I mean, it's like, and I thought it was interesting, like, you know, what does qualify something to actually be religious? You have to be, have a place of worship. You do actually have to, like, worship some kind of deity. It doesn't have to be something necessarily recognized, but it's just, like, as long as you do pray and, you know, as long as also the money is not going to one person. It's, like, very specific stuff like that. And it's like, wait, the new ministry of Satan, it's like, and I love that, like, Ben was like, so there's an old one? And then the father was like, yeah, there's several in actuality. So, but it is interesting. Also, you're not supposed to get political, which even that kind of gets brought up of like, really? Because isn't the church guilty of kind of getting mixed up in that too? And it's just kind of like, eh. And it's also interesting because it's like the church is trying to shut this down. It's like, right, we can't go about it more directly. We have to indirectly use within the frame of the IRS. We have to use the legality that the IRS presents to basically shut this down. I'm like, okay. Yeah, because it's like, yeah, some of the stuff that they're being accused of, like, couldn't you, like, the whole, like, get mixed up with, because I think Ben makes some remark about, like, where the funds of a church go or something like that, and then once again, like, getting mixed into politics and stuff like that. It's like, doesn't that, you know, so, but they meet the ministry of Satan, specifically, like, one of the people, Graham, and he kind of just, you know, David's kind of really testing whether or not he actually believes in what he believes. He's like, yeah, we worship this. It seems like some of their, like, scheduled sermons and stuff like that were about, it wasn't even, like, what I thought was interesting is, like, well, I think except for, like, the last one, most of those were, like, the 7 deadly sins, which they also, weirdly enough, like, because have you ever, I've looked into it for, like, a story I was trying to write, but, like, a lot of, like, the 7 deadly sins parallel with, like, the 9 circles of hell, like, in certain regards, like, gluttony, lust, wrath, You know, it's interesting like how a lot of that like ends up paralleling. There's like there's crossover in that regard. I don't know. I'm mainly familiar with the Seven Deadly Sins mainly because of Full Metal Alchemist and the anime Nanatsu no Taizai Seven Deadly Sins, being the literal translation of it, which is the English titling of it anyway. But regardless, tangents and all that aside, but it was like, oh, I paused, I was like, oh, that's interesting. But it's like, once again, it's not even on all 7 of the sins, because like the final one was like vanity, and I was like, I was about to say, it's like, I would assume that would be pride. But I was like, I guess because they were kind of speaking about non-violence, so they weren't including something like wrath. But I was like, yeah. But it had like most of the 7 deadly sins, so I thought that was interesting. But I guess like trying to like fit with the narrative they're trying to create about what they aren't about. Like, right. It's like, yeah, like it's about like, oh, like praying to, you know, Satan to like harm people so you can get whatever you want to. It's all about like, right, with the church, it's like getting your rewards in the afterlife. With him, it's with this new ministry, it's about getting your rewards here on earth, which is obviously stuff that Leland's kind of spoken about before too. So it's like, and also they're merchandising it, which is kind of weird to think about. I don't think the church does that. I mean, I wouldn't know like that, but that'd be kind of weird to think about. I mean, I'm sure there are religious groups that do. I mean, no shade, but it's kind of crazy. I mean, because they even had like Jediism up there. So I'm like, yeah, no, you follow like I mean, I wonder, is there like a competitor to that, like Sith? Like, is there, you know, those who follow the path of the Sith? Like, you know, I don't know. I mean, or does that kind of get lumped into like, are there 2 sects of Jediism? I feel like I know that was a thing, but I don't know. Because I'm pretty sure like everything they showed in that opening, when they were like bringing up all the like the criteria to be a religious group, like I think all that was real. Once again, I could be full of crap. Like religion's a subject I've dabbled in just like school wise and learning about like different religions and like how like there's a lot of commonality in certain stuff. Like I remember learning about that like world history in my freshman year, even though I know taking world history like multiple times. That's a story for another day, which I think I've talked about that publicly anyway. Regardless, so that's about it. I'm never like well versed in religion. It's just kind of just never really been my thing. So I find it fascinating. Just like I just once again just never know personally where my beliefs lie. So right, the whole point of what I was making about it's just interesting to know like there's merch for like, it's like the big seller was, why yes, I work for Satan or something like that. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like once again, it's weird seeing like merch for like a church and stuff like that. Like I said, I don't know if there's any other like recognized religious groups that actually do that. So now the question is like, well, is this legitimate or not? Kind of leans more towards the not legitimate because of that, but like once again, like Father Marx is kind of more like, let's push towards trying to get this like organization kind of taken out of the equation. Then you also have Kristen circumstances, obviously her and Andy, like they're in therapy, you know, for him, like Andy's bringing up like kind of his issues and, you know, they do the whole mirror therapy. And then it's just like, all right, like tell me what's the issue really? And, you know, Kristen's trying to be frank and he's like, are you sleeping with someone? And it's like, what? No. And it's like, is it Ben? And she's like, what? No. I'm like, I'm sure Ben would be like, why you have to say it like that? And it's like, David. And you got the like, she's like, no. But it's like, no, she hasn't slept with David. She's thought about it though. But then like all of a sudden she's looking in the corner and she's seeing the djinn and it's kind of almost like rubbing its tongue against his teeth. And she's just like, you should trust me like I trust you. Because she was asking like, are you sleeping with anyone, Andy? So... But now for her, it's like, no, I'm hallucinating anymore. Like, I need you to, like, give me, like, some more medication. Because it's like, yeah, I'm still taking it. But, like, it's like, well, I had upped the doses or something before. But now it's like, right, let's just switch over to something more powerful. And she's trying to do that. At the same time, I love that David was, you have your boy Leland doing his, getting ready for his exorcism and everything. And then David's reading the pamphlet from, like, this new ministry, which, like, Leland was super offended by. He's like, what the hell is this garbage? He's like, the fact is, like, oh, they're not even true believers. It's like, pictures of family and kids. It's like, no, it's about violence and power, you know? So... I wonder, I'd assume like David wanted that response out of him because it's just like, maybe for him it's like, right, like get Leland's perspective on it, whether or not this would be considered legitimate. Like as if he had a very like cavalier response about it, like him having the very like negative response to it kind of solidified, I think, a little bit more in David's book of like, right, so this probably is, you know, someone as evil as him not legitimizing it means it isn't legitimate. But yeah, they do his exorcism, because even the father who's doing the exorcism, like, you know, it's like, this is going to be like the final stage to it, the exorcism, and they go through it, and then like things start getting a little wonky to the point like Leland starts doing voices, and I was like, shouldn't you bring Ben here to make sure there's no like electronic setup or anything like that? Because that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, but he goes like full blown exorcist, like, oh, he's got all these different voices that's coming out. And so I would have brought Ben at one point, but then like he kicks a priest like across the room and is like, wait, this is severe. And so even David's like, hey, Kristen, can I ask you to come and check this out? It's like, oh, like she's like, you're really buying into this exorcism? It's like, I think so. Like Leland like kicked a priest like, you know, 8 feet across the room, and it's like he starts speaking in these different voices. It's like, wait, you think Leland's starting to believe in the exorcism? Exorcism? I was like, no, I think God is. He's like, God is like, oh, you want to do this exorcism thing? All right, I'll make it real. It's kind of what David's kind of implying. And then when Kristen shows up, even she's like, what? And he spews up something black, and there's like stuff moving in. I'm like, oh, what the hell? And at first I didn't know what to make of it. Like Kristen was like looking at her face because I think she was thinking like, oh, I'm seeing something. But then she goes in the bathroom and like David's not realizing. And I'm like, wait, is it exorcism affecting you? Are you getting exercised too? And she's just like, then she looks at her belly and her stomach is like has a cut. Very, if you haven't seen it already, very brand new cherry flavor on Netflix. Very similar tone and feel in that scene, and just like the thing comes out of her and there's just goo everywhere. I'm like, what the hell? Because I expected when she lifted up her shirt, like the cross marks on her body were going to be burning. It is interesting enough, you do notice that like when she lifted up her shirt, from what we could tell, none of the cross marks were there, only like the gash from like this thing coming out of her. But I was like, what is this? She runs out, and I guess she thought David was thinking like, oh, the exorcism was too much for her, but it literally was. But when she gets back outside, it's just like her cross marks on her stomach, and it's like she feels like she's losing her mind. Because previously they had talked to Graham, because obviously like their church is a little different. And it's like, oh yeah, like there was a lady that Iris who like it's like, yeah, like whereas the church has altar boys, they have altar girls, rather women, and she just like walked in there topless, and it seems like mainly that women's kind of their thing. And so it's a thing of like, oh, she's like, because he's talking about like, right, like that ministry is all about like women's sexuality and stuff, like basically saying like the good stuff, it's like that's Satan, that's not God. Like God like pins you back, like, you know, it's like Satan's going to let you run free with everything. So he's even saying like, oh, like your nipples, I can see through your blouse. It's like, that's Satan. It's like, no, that's your imagination. So it's like, okay, there was I have to look into that actor who plays Graham. I'm like, he looks so damn familiar. I can't place him. He kind of reminds me a little, like with his hair and everything, he reminds me of Jack Quaid a little. But I'm like, there's something, I'm like, I recognize that actor for something. I just can't remember what it is. But yeah, like after her experience with the whole exorcism, lo and behold, she goes to a bar, meets up with Graham, and it was like, she does the whole car thing. Like when she got to the car, I thought she was gonna like pull back again, like last time when she was all flirty, and I'm like, nope, she goes through with it this time. I was like, whoa. I was like, okay. Then she goes home, and I'm like, part of me was also like, I was trying to, did you readjust the seat? Because it probably will be kind of seen as a little weird that the seat, but it's like, no, it seems like the seat was legit. And I'm like, pick the weirdest time to put your panties back on. And lo and behold, who would catch you putting them on? I was like, cool. I mean, I guess good thing it wasn't Andy, but like, oh, your mom. It's like, I feel like that's almost like the last person you want. She's like, I don't know what you think is going on. She's like, I know, because the same thing happened between me and your dad. So it's like, you know, go to the bath, take a bath, scrub yourself down, gargle, like some stuff, but also like dump the bath, like drain the bathtub, and then like wash yourself afterwards in a shower. So, and obviously for her, it's like the common, because like when she went back in the bathroom later on, it's like there was like residue, and so she like starts scrubbing, because it's like, because I think she had noticed it like when she was in the bathtub that like the water had changed like to a greenish color. So I was like, I don't know whether she was like she's visually seeing like, no, there's like, is something actually there, or is it still in my mind? Even to the point that she comes and confronts Kurt later on, and she fires him because like she's like, you're sleeping with my mom or something, aren't you? And it's like, no, he's not. I mean, not unless I mean, all we know is her circumstances with Leland. We don't know about her circumstances with Kurt, but it's like, it's just kind of like, like, you already knew about my thoughts and stuff like that. That's why she was like, she was paranoid. Like, I don't know whether it's like the combination of medications and being so, like, because she isn't hallucinating, like, taking medication for something you're not actually suffering from probably deals issues in its own right. So once again, it's like the cross between real supernatural demons and stuff versus what's all in your head. It's like, I think most things that go down in a show is real, but that's also the thing of how much is real, how much is just in your head. Like, I think a lot is not. I think it's because Kristen is so clinical about stuff that she is so strongly believing it is in her head, when in actuality it is something, and I think that's causing her to kind of lose her mind a little bit. So I do love that it's like, right, you let Leland get my, like, files and stuff. He's like, no, they were stolen. And it's like, now you're sleeping with my mom. She's like, I'm done with you. He's like, you need to kind of be waned off of this. You can't just, like, drop the medication that could have issues. It's like she's being paranoid. And he's like, he calls someone up and me. He's like, we have to talk. And she's like, see, you couldn't even wait. It's like, this is my wife. Here, you can talk to her. I'm like, you see her spiraling a little bit. I think everything's a little bit better later on. Well, first and foremost, let's circle to Leland's situation. Him calling Cheryl up and being like, "Oh, I need Cheryl, bring a root beer." I'm like, man, this ain't no act. Because even David asked her early on, like, to that father doing exorcisms, like, well, that's not an act. It's like that. No, it's like the exorcism was like really kicking in this time. But luckily Cheryl was able to dump the blood on him and everything. It's like, okay. She's like, you got one more day of exorcism? Like, are you gonna be able to survive it? He's like, yeah, I got it. Like, I don't know whether he knew because of the Kristen, like, maybe Kristen being there, like, he needed things to go that extreme. He didn't think it'd affect him as much as it did. Goat Dude was warning him about that. But I think seeing Kristen there, like, getting enough of a glimpse and realizing, like, right, like, she's taking some of the heat off of him. Like, the whole point was to get her there so that she would go through what she's going through, I guess. I don't know if that was part of the plan, because, like, after he gets in the bloodbath and everything, like, he's fine, cool, and calm, like, I got this, it's no problem. Like, I guess now it's like, it's not like, I guess he's kind of built his strength up that it's like, oh, either he knew it was affecting Kristen the way it was, or he knew it wasn't going to affect him anymore, whatever, maybe a combination of the two. But he's doing his fake thing, and even David's kind of picking up on, like, yeah, this is fake, it's not even real anymore. Before there was something there, but now it's not. But part of me was wondering, like, is that because it's actually affecting Kristen this time, so that changes things? So, and Kristen's like, everything that Leland's faking, she's being sincere about. And so even she at the end was talking to David, like, do you think, like, even if you don't believe in God, that, like, an exorcism can still work? And she makes the comparison from a medical standpoint of, like, a placebo. But he was like, yeah, but, like, God's and an exorcism isn't a placebo. But yeah, it's, even though she didn't believe, because he was essentially saying, like, David was like, yeah, because if it's working, that means on some level you do believe. So that was fascinating. Because because it, like, everything with Kristen's circumstances has been a culmination of many different things, from what she went through in season 1, specifically the LaRousse thing, and then just, like, the whole more and more of just kind of getting corrupted with the whole Jen situation. It's just been, like, accumulating over and over again. And obviously even to the point, like, yeah, they were able to say, like, yeah, the church of ministry, like, the IRS should be recognizing it. But it's like, oh, we want to speak. And the moment Graham's in the room, I'm like, oh God, this is about it. Is he going to, like, toy with her and not say anything? But then he also does say something. He's like, oh yeah, because Kristen slept with me and now she just wants to hurt me. And they're like, oh, that's original. And she's like, wow. She's like, I would rather sleep with Satan himself first. And he's like, Graham's like, you're a liar, which I'm like, we all, the audience are like, yeah, we know she is. That's kind of like, which is so interesting. It's like, I guess it's like, which is so interesting because Satan's supposed to be like the prince of lies, which, to be fair, the show Lucifer kind of shows us, like, right, he's not. He never lies. He kind of holds back the truth a little bit, but he can't lie. That's kind of his thing. So maybe that's why, like, they don't like liars. So maybe that kind of still fits with the whole thing. But the dude Jim, it's like, oh yeah, like, Satan's coming after all three of you. And I'm like, it kind of already has been for a while, so it's kind of no different. But I guess it's like from their perspective, he's saying that. But it's like, I don't know how much they really look into that, because it's like, well, we've been battling evil regardless. It's kind of been, I mean, Leland and all that have been like arming themselves up regardless. So that's why I'm like, is there any validity to it? Even if it was, like, would it be any different from like what's already been happening around all of them anyway? Like, the attacks have been coming in different shapes and forms and waves. I want to find out about that whole where we left Ben's story at last episode. I need to find out what we're going to do about that. Like the whole Vanessa thing. I need to know what we're going to do about that. Like, that was wild. Like, wait, what? Like, I guess we're just going to, like, maybe that's not going to get touched until next season. Probably. We'll see. We'll see if that comes up in the next 2 episodes or not. But all of that, like, it has hit Kristen in a certain way. And it's like, right, Andy's leaving for like a month. I'm leaving to go sell the business, and I've only, like, he's leaving in like 10 minutes. I gotta go. And she ultimately races over there, and sadly, like, Andy is about to leave, and she's like, on the phone, she's like, I've been off. I love you and the kids. I'm so sorry. She is back to herself, and it seemed like, oh, like, this has all been a good thing for Kristen. And luckily, she got there in time. Like, there was a fire outside. I was like, oh, it's like, this is a little ominous. But Andy's still there. It's like, oh, he got her message. That's good. And so basically, he came up with that thing of like, right, writing like your afflictions on the paper. Right, circle the person's name, because it's not a good thing to burn someone's name. Like, the circle is meant to be protection. And so he's kind of like, oh, it's going to be a fresh start. So, like, maybe on some level he knows, but regardless of whatever the circumstances are, it's like, it's a fresh start for us. I'm gonna sell a business, I'm gonna come back and everything's good. So, like, Kristen's feeling great about it. We do see at the very end that Leland's there with the Jen and being like, oh, hello. Like, I guess they specifically, like, they've been, like, attacking Kristen because she's the entry point so they can get to David, because David's down to his, like, at last 18 days, even less so by the end of the episode. But he's nearing the end of his, until he becomes a full-blown priest. But obviously, Ben's doing it, I think, seriously, but also, like, partially joking. But, like, Kristen made it pretty damn clear, like, I don't want you to become a priest. We'll see how that plays out. But so it's like, I'm wondering, like, did they need the Jen inside of Kristen for a while to cause a little havoc so that they can, like, really, like, screw over her life and screw her up a little bit, kind of send her over the edge, and send, like, that will ripple out in certain regards. It makes you wonder, does Cheryl, like, it doesn't seem like Cheryl has any part to play in that, but she's still sitting on that ammunition that she could use against Kristen to kind of pull that trigger on, like, and consider she's working with them, that could potentially happen. I don't see it happening, but I don't know if she'd do anything to threaten her family now. Like, she's mixed up in all this Satan stuff, and I'm like, is she in any shape or form going to do anything that could hurt her family, or will she just end up not? Because, like, it's like, yeah, all that stuff is that, but I'm not going to do anything to hurt my family. I'm back in her. I don't know. Are they something she's willing to just throw away and sacrifice if need be, and cause whatever havoc and chaos she needs, or is she willing to try and like also protect her family from all of them? I don't know what Cheryl's end goal is in the grand scheme of things. Maybe even she doesn't know. But that's why I'm like, the Jen being inside of Kristen, like, has it been feeding off of her the entire time it's been inside of her? So, like, all that stuff that's happened, like, it finally gets exercised, but it's, like, chomped down on everything, so it's coming back to Leland, like, oh, give me some of that good sin that you've pulled off of her, essentially. But I'm so curious to see how this is going to affect Kristen going forward. Once again, the whole point was to get her to get David to not become a priest, but it's like, maybe this can still tiptoe down that direction. Like, I don't know. It seemed like this whole circumstance helped in the end, but, like, it seems like it might have all gone according to plan too. I don't know how to make heads or tails of all of this, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all of this goes. Like I mentioned earlier, there's only 2 episodes left this season, so I'm excited to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.